So Le'Veon Bell held out for that Ted Danson money. He did. He held out for that Ted Danson money for Seinfeld fans. But much like George Costanza when he held out for that Ted Danson money for the NBC deal, he lost. George lost. They got less money offered. And Le'Veon Bell lost. Le'Veon Bell, who is now a New York Jet, there's a little new image that the NFL Network, NFL is doing now when you go to a new team. They give you this nice little Photoshop, little calligraphy up top there. Got his whole facial features and little goatee. We saw that with Antonio Brown. There's no blonde mustache here, although AB's already shaved that now with the Raiders. And Le'Veon Bell, back in green, baby, let's get it. Harkening back to the Michigan State days. But Le'Veon Bell signs a 4-year deal with the New York Jets, max value of $61 million, and includes $35 million guaranteed after sitting out a year. Now, Le'Veon Bell sat out a year to get more money. He sat out a year because he argued that deal the Jets just offered him, a similar deal to that, if not a better deal than that was offered by the Pittsburgh Steelers over a year ago, that was unacceptable, that was not good enough for him. There was even a little joke that he ran with, or maybe he was serious actually, when he was caught on the street by TMZ about a year ago, asking if he would sign for the Jets for that deal, for the $61 million deal over 4 years, about that deal, an average of $13.1 million. That deal. And he laughed and said, no, that's not enough. He would need 100 M's, $100 million to sign with the Jets, as moribund as they were. But hey, he'll be in New York now. He certainly is not a poor guy, and he'll be able to help maybe that rap career. I don't know, he dropped a few albums on SoundCloud when he made this announcement too. In all seriousness, though, unlike Antonio Brown, who many of you may not have enjoyed that show, where I did a show here in Pittsburgh Sports Live and on SteelersNow.com, our new venture within the Pittsburgh Sports Now family. There it is. Antonio Brown, one drama with the Steelers. Threw that up on SteelersNow.com. Still can check that out there. Also available Pittsburgh Sports Live on our YouTube channel and pghsportslive.com for the website. That Antonio Brown beat the Steelers. Antonio Brown acted like a complete lunatic, managed to force a trade, managed to get himself out of there. They didn't even get a first-round draft pick for him. He ended up getting more money and a promotion and is in a better situation for him, at least for what he wants, because it's really just about money and being the guy. Doesn't have to worry about Juju in Oakland now either. So Antonio Brown beat the Steelers. Antonio Brown got more money. That's the number one thing. He beat the Steelers. He won his bizarre drama and saga against Pittsburgh. But Le'Veon Bell did not. Le'Veon Bell lost. Le'Veon Bell turned down a very similar offer to what he accepted from the Jets, from the Steelers over a year ago. Le'Veon Bell sat out a year. Didn't play for a year. Didn't sign a franchise tender that was offered a $14.5 million. So subtract that now from the books of money made with the Jets. He would have had that money had he signed it last year and played. He didn't. Even up to week 10, he could have came back and got some cash. But Le'Veon Bell did not sign that franchise tag, sat out a year, and I get the naysayers and I get those who are going to defend Le'Veon Bell. And I honestly, again, you can go back. I defend him a little bit. I understood where he was coming from. I understood what this was about. I did understand what Le'Veon Bell wanted and his point. Le'Veon Bell was arguing that a franchise tag is way, way too risky, regardless of what the number figure is. He wanted the security. He wanted the guaranteed money. He saw what happened to Ryan Shazier, who, while the Steelers are still taken care of, they're certainly not giving him millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. He's not making $30 million guaranteed by any means. He's staying on the team. He's getting a six-figure check. He's a part of the family. He's getting the active player health care and increasing his pension. It's wonderful. They're taking care of the guy. But if Le'Veon Bell suffered a serious injury like that, who knows if they would have done that for him? And even if they would have, as it is a classy organization, evident by their handling of Shazier, that it wouldn't have made up the difference of what he thought he was worth. He wouldn't have made near as much money. I get it. It was about the guarantee. But Le'Veon Bell bet on himself and lost. He pulled a George Costanza. He wanted that Ted Danson money. He wanted the Ted Danson, Todd Gurley money. Because you could say that Ted Danson money in Seinfeld is the Todd Gurley money right now for running backs in the National Football League. Whereas Todd Gurley got the big mega deal. Todd Gurley, who is younger and at the time maybe a more budding future due to Le'Veon Bell being so injury prone, not playing full seasons, and having some off the field incidents that Todd Gurley did not have when that deal was offered by the Rams. But Todd Gurley has the mega deal. Todd Gurley has the deal that Le'Veon Bell wanted and probably still secretly wants and is jealous of. But Todd Gurley, James Conner, the entire National Football League helped prove why Le'Veon Bell's bet was dumb and he ended up losing it. Sure, he gets a big deal. Sure, he's a member of the New York Jets and it's a big media market and he doesn't care about winning and they're not going to win despite having some talent and Sam Darnold ascending as a young quarterback in the league. But there's so much more they need there. And unless they just completely run him into the ground for a couple years and he catches every single pass and runs every single touch, and even then, they're not going to go anywhere. They have an uphill battle. They have to deal with the Patriots in the division. I'm not even sure they're the second best team in the division. It's an average franchise at best recently, and they're just not going to win. But money was what he was really after. Money was really what he was after. And okay, that's fine. That's fair. Not everybody wants to win a championship as the number one priority. These are professionals. It's their job. So they want money to take care of themselves and their family to set themselves up for generations upon generations. And you can't compare their salary with ours and what you and I may make because obviously they're professional athletes and it's within relative to the money they're generating for their employer and what their employer is bringing in, still exponentially greater than what they're getting. But Le'Veon Bell bet on himself and lost. Le'Veon Bell did not factor in that, yes, he's a premier running back. Yes, maybe he was the best running back in football at that time. Maybe he still is. We haven't seen him on the football field in a year, but maybe he still is. But Le'Veon Bell is still a running back. And even though he catches some passes and does more Marshall Faulk type things than most backs, he's still, again, a running back. He still has that body. And running backs have a short shelf life. Running backs just simply do. After 30 years old, certainly 31, 32, you're pretty much done as a running back, certainly as an elite one. The Adrian Petersons of the world who had that comeback year with the Redskins, that's not common. That hasn't happened too often historically at all, really, especially in this day and age. And you're not paying for somebody's past, you're paying for the future. The running back position is just not necessary. It's why he was never going to get $17 million per season. It's why to require that or you wouldn't play ended up being a dumb play. Ended up costing him money, and he ended up signing a deal that actually was worse than the deal offered by the Steelers. The Steelers were offering more money per year. Yes, they were offering a couple $1 million less on a guarantee, and I understand right away the Jets' guarantee was greater, but he would have got all that guarantee money from the Steelers. He just would have. He would have ended up with $33 million from the Steelers guaranteed, barring something insane, where he's getting $35 million from the Jets. But the Steelers deal would have been more overall money. It at the time actually was for more years, even though one of those years would have been spent last year if he signed that and did play. So he'd have 4 more years, whereas the Jets was a 4-year overall contract. So it's less overall money around the same guarantee in all intents and purposes. And that's the deal that he gets after a year of sitting out. Why? The running back position, as I said, is not necessary. You don't need a Todd Gurley or Le'Veon Bell to win a championship. In fact, Todd Gurley, as elite as he was and as great as he was for the Rams, and some arguing he was their team MVP even over Jared Goff, and I could certainly give that to you in the regular season, where he was more important to that team, and Jared Goff, as great as he was last year, was able to kind of sit back and hand the rock off to Todd Gurley and be comfortable. It's great asset to have, but Todd Gurley was either ineffective or heavily injured in this past postseason, and C.J. Anderson got off his couch out of nowhere and immediately stepped in and was clipping off yards, was helping to lead the Rams to the Super Bowl. C.J. Anderson, former Denver Bronco, former Super Bowl champion with the Broncos, so has that experience, but not an elite running back, not a Hall of Fame running back, not a number one overall type of draft pick, first round type of guy, running back. He's not necessarily the face of your franchise, nor going to ever be. He wasn't on a team all year. He was sitting at home on his couch like you. Sure, he might have been working out every now and then, but there was no minor league football at that time, so he was doing nothing and got a call, walks off his couch, fresh as a daisy, steps right in and clips yards and helps the Rams win the NFC crown. That doesn't help Le'Veon Bell's case, because that's not an elite running back that you're paying a lot. That's just some guy off a couch who previously was good and now is a veteran replacement. The Steelers plugging in James Conner obviously hurt Le'Veon Bell in his argument. James Conner, who was injury-prone the year before, had an injury-prone career at Pitt despite how great it was, and we know about cancer and overcoming that, and as wonderful as that is, but still a guy who's missed a lot of games the prior few years. Certainly not a first-round draft pick. Certainly not a guy that many immediately guaranteed was going to be a Pro Bowler in the National Football League. And I admit, I didn't believe in him. I didn't think he'd replace Bell as well as he did, but he did. So I was wrong there. Bell proved a lot of us wrong, or Connor proved a lot of us wrong. Maybe even Bell himself proved me wrong. Did better than what I thought he would do. But by doing so, that hurt Bell's argument. By doing so, that hurt Bell's stance. That hurt Bell's chance at cashing in, or the money, the Ted Danson money that he thought he wanted to garner, that $17 million that was never going to happen. That hurt him. James Conner had a Pro Bowl season with 100-plus yards game after game after game when healthy. And yes, he had some off games, but when healthy, he filled in adequately, including week one, even the tie against the Browns. He played and performed very, very well right from the jump, already exceeding expectations with a couple touchdowns and over 100 yards. He wasn't making $17 million per season. He wasn't making $13 million per season by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. The Patriots this past year, the Patriots threw almost their entire dynasty, no matter what roster they've had over the last 15-plus years with Brady and Belichick. Kevin Falk is that main running back you would think of from their era, from that dynasty, and that was the early 2000s New England Patriots. Nobody really recently has been elite. Yeah, LeGarrette Blount has been there and did well there, but he was still in a running back by committee group. The Philadelphia Eagles, also with Blount and company, a couple years ago when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't have a number one elite back they were paying $13 million to. No, they had a group they were paying and spreading out the money. Sure, it's great to have an elite running back, especially if you're not paying him tons, but it would just be stupid, yes, it would have been, to pay Le'Veon Bell $17 million. Really? They might even have been lucked out that he turned down the 13.3 or 13.5 or whatever it was. It's a better deal than the Jets ended up offering him and him signing there. But that might be fortunate to the Steelers. They can save tons of money, get similar production from Connor, and spread out the wealth because they still need some help in other positions. But Le'Veon Bell lost. I mean, he has tons of money, so yes, he didn't lose in life. He's richer than all of us ever will be. But still, he bettered himself. He pulled a George Costanza. Maybe you're annoyed by this, but I'm a big Seinfeld fan. Just saw Jerry Seinfeld stand up, actually, at the Benedum. Saw that 5 years ago, too, and Jerry is money every single time. Costs a pretty penny, but it's absolutely worth it. He steps on stage. You don't even know the real thing starts as he just immediately complaining about normal things in society and goes for 2 hours doing that, and there's your show. It was wonderful. But he pulled a George Costanza and lost, holding out for that Ted Danson money or that Todd Gurley money, did Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell gets a big deal, sure. And it's great to get that deal after sitting out a year. And maybe he would have saved himself from getting tons of tread in his tires and risking injury. And the more carries you have, and the more car crashes you have by all the tackles you get in the National Football League, that's really what they're like pretty much. It makes your shelf life shorter, so maybe he gained himself a year by sitting out last year. Okay, maybe he'll be more productive, but all of it was for the money. Don't fool yourself. He thought he should get a $17 million per year deal. He thought he should get $35, $40 plus million guaranteed right away. He thought he should have got the biggest deal for a running back in the National Football League, if not history. That Todd Gurley, that Ted Danson money. And he thought if the Steelers weren't giving it to him, he wouldn't play for them. And the franchise tag's a whole other argument for another day. It is certainly unfair to players in many ways. But don't hate the player, hate the game. The Steelers were just using the tag the way any other team would. Any other team would have tagged him in that situation. They didn't invent the tag. And they did that because they knew everything I've been saying is correct. They knew you did not need an elite running back to win. They knew you shouldn't pay a running back, even if he's elite, tons of money in a mega deal, regardless of their personality and who they are, especially if they're missing games and off injured and have problems off the field. But regardless, and put all of that aside, they knew that a running back is not necessary to have an elite one on your team. It's just not, you don't have to have an elite running back to win. It's been proven time and time again, you can win a championship even without an elite running back. It's a short shelf life position. It's not even like a receiver, certainly not a quarterback, certainly not a lineman, certainly not many defensive positions. It's a short shelf life position where you don't need an elite one. Even Todd Gurley, who was that guy, that the diamond in the rough, that said, okay, he's changing that turn, that tune. Same thing with Ezekiel Elliott, except for when Todd Gurley was out, when Todd Gurley wasn't playing well, when he was injured, they were still able to win. The Rams were still able to go to the Super Bowl, and C.J. Anderson, making no money in comparison, got off his couch, fresh as a daisy, all of a sudden clipped off yards, and they won an NFC crown. Without much production from Todd Gurley, the guy they're paying all the money to in their elite running back. So they did it really without him, at least in the playoffs. But he bet on himself anyway, and I respect it. Okay, I respect it. I get it. But he lost. He just did. Look at that again. Look at that. That can also be the album cover. Can the NFL loan him that for the album cover? Le'Veon Bell, back in green, baby, harkening back to the Michigan State days. Those are good, though. Those are good. The AB one, obviously, is the best with the blonde mustache. And, again, that's gone with the Raiders. As crazy as that is. Some now feel he's a sane human being based on that press conference. But trust me, he once was sane, humble, and coming off like a normal guy and calm with the Steelers and in Pittsburgh, and then that all went awry. We'll see what happens in Oakland. But Le'Veon Bell bet on himself and lost. And really, to round this out, because it's clear and this is hard to argue, Le'Veon, unlike Antonio Brown, which may be a polarizing topic, maybe there can be disagreement whether you go into the taxes of it, even though he got more money, there's more tax in California. When you go on the fact that his team's going to be much worse, granted, he doesn't care about that. There's things to argue. I get it. And the return in comparison to, say, the Odell Beckham trade wasn't there. Maybe that's off of the insanity of Antonio Brown ruining the value of that trade for the Steelers, which, again, is why they said they had to trade him quicker. They had to realize it quicker. And why they need to be more proactive than they were. I said that on several Pittsburgh Sports Live shows, several episodes of Mic Drop, and go find all that at SteelersNow.com. But that's done and over with. We'll have that argument for another day and go comment on those past shows if you want. In terms of Le'Veon Bell, there really is no argument. There's nothing to say here. The guy held out for more money. He wanted a long-term mega deal. He wanted to be paid as the highest paid running back in football. He actually argued he was more than a running back, but also a wide receiver. They were able to relatively replace his production. And sure, they might have gotten the playoffs with him. Sure, he might have been able to swing one or two games where they got upset and lost games they shouldn't have lost. The Raiders game, the Chargers 16-point comeback to beat the Steelers, the Browns tie. But some of those games, James Conner played very, very well. It wasn't a running back issue, even though he did fumble and have some problems late in the year. And regardless, his production by itself still, even if it swings one or two games, they shouldn't have needed him to swing one or two games to get them in the playoffs with that roster anyway. They should have been able to swing two or three, if not four, of those games on their own, with or without Bell. They lost the teams that were beneath them. But regardless, You can't kill yourself for the future paying for the past of a running back position with an incredibly short shelf life, with his best years probably behind him, and give somebody around $17 million per season. They were willing to give him a decent offer. They were. They offered him a better deal than the Jets ended up offering him, and him taking with the Jets. And there was the rumors of the Ravens and Raiders getting in there, and eventually he wanted to use them to get a better deal from the Jets, but it never happened because everybody knew that that's basically the best deal. The deal the Steelers offered Le'Veon Bell a year ago was the best deal. It was a better deal than what the Jets offered him. And it's a good deal with the Jets, but it's not the Todd Gurley money. It's not Ted Danson money. It certainly is a loss for him holding out for more money, or at least betting on himself. But here's the other thing, as I round things out here. Many of you are actually hating Le'Veon Bell as much as Antonio Brown. You see, I walked the streets of the Strip District this past Sunday. There's T-shirts making fun of both of them, calling them both jag-offs and joking around about both of them. And I get it. I almost bought one. Almost was going to wear one right here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. But they're not in the same boat, guys. It's just not, that doesn't even make any sense. It's not the same scenario. I threw a poll out there on my Twitter, and we were going to do it on SteelersNow.com. And most people actually were in agreement. There was about 90+% agreeing with me here, and that's pretty rare, I admit. So maybe I don't even need to say this, but I just want to get off my chest. They're not the same. The situations aren't the same. There's no reason to hold the same animosity, hatred, or venom against Le'Veon Bell that you may hold against Antonio Brown. As I've said in the past, and as everybody would know now, Antonio Brown disrespected the Steelers, his teammates. He quit on his teammates in Week 17. He slapped his coaches in the face, metaphorically speaking. So Antonio Brown disrespected his teammates, disrespected the coaching staff, disrespected the media, which, okay, who cares? Everyone does, kind of. We're not going to worry about it. But more importantly, disrespected you, the fans, as well, by quitting on his teammates, by acting the way he did, as immature as he did. And yes, there's some blame to go around to Ben Roethlisberger, some of the things he said there. It's true. There's even some blame to go around to Mike Tomlin, who didn't reel this in years ago. That's true, too, sure. But going on a media tour and a car wash of sorts with LeBron James, and then having his little Facebook Lives with James Harrison, who loved every second of it to rip the Steelers further, forcing it to be a drama day after day, hour after hour, going on Instagram Live at 3 a.m. I couldn't even get some sleep trying to cover the Antonio Brown madness. He decreased his value so much and ruined it so much they had to take the best offer for him because they were getting worse and worse by the day. And even going to the Bills trade that he basically, by all reports, screwed up and effed up. Forget the comment on NFL's Instagram post of fake news. But the reports are him and his agent told the Bills, I'm not going to report, I want to go there. And I admit I wouldn't want to live in Buffalo either. But who the hell does he think he is? Without leverage and without legality, he basically kind of controlled the situation by disrespecting his teammates, quitting on his teammates, disrespecting the coaches, and acting like a complete lunatic. And that doesn't even go to throwing furniture off a balcony and almost killing a toddler. And we know the speeding on McKnight Road, which is still amazing that he was able to do that there without any cars on the road and without killing anybody, because that's one of the most heavily trafficked areas in all of Western Pennsylvania. I'd love to speed there. I don't know how that's even possible, really. And then Le'Veon Bell, on the flip side, yes, he didn't show up last year. Yes, he didn't play, and yes, maybe that hurt the team. And yes, that in a way could be disrespectful, or at least to some of his teammates that claimed, and they told us around the facility that they didn't expect that to happen from him. They thought he would show up at least eventually. Okay, I hear that. But he stayed relatively quiet during the offseason. He didn't drag it through the mud. He didn't have every day throw up a tweet. He didn't go on Instagram Live. He's recording his album. It's ridiculous, but it's not disrespectful to the Steelers necessarily. It was now Antonio Brown was mostly about money too, and he got more of it. But Le'Veon Bell was telling you it was about money. He wasn't lying. He wanted his market value. He bet on himself and lost, but you got to respect that at least. and almost maybe even feel bad from the guy. Maybe he got advice from an agent, bad advice in terms of the market in the National Football League for running backs. He didn't realize the landscape. He didn't predict James Conner's success without him. He didn't predict Todd Gurley being hurt and not producing in the playoffs, but the Rams winning anyway with C.J. Anderson. He didn't think of any of that. He didn't look at the last championship teams, the fact they didn't have an elite running back. His agent should have told him all of this and said that was a great offer from the Steelers. That's the best offer you're going to get, and it's proven now to be the better offer and the best offer he was going to get in 2 years. Even this offseason, there was still reports of looking for 15 to 17, and that just wasn't there. So Bell got bad advice, did it all for money, kept the drama, I don't want to say to a minimum, but not even close to the level of Antonio Brown. And really, he just played his hand poorly and lost. So you almost feel bad for the guy in a way, if you can feel bad for a man who has $35 million guaranteed coming to him and over $60 million in his contract. I don't feel bad really, but it's not the same as Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown dragged everybody through the mud, disrespected everybody on the way out, had a horrible, horrendous divorce from his marriage with the Steelers, whereas Le'Veon Bell, he did poor George Costanza. I just love this tweet, by the way. Like Clay Travis or not, this might be the tweet of the year, at least for the NFL offseason. He bet on himself and lost. He wanted that Ted Danson money and didn't get it. So there's no reason to hate Le'Veon Bell to the same level of Antonio Brown. I get fans hating Antonio Brown. Maybe he deserves it now. But Le'Veon Bell was a great player. Yes, he was injured. Yes, he had some problems. But he was the best running back in football when healthy for the Steelers. It helped them, even though they didn't win championships. And he just wanted more money. It was a business situation, really. And even if Antonio Brown was too, Le'Veon Bell at least handled himself a little bit more professionally, and he just didn't sign. It wasn't like he showed up and caused drama. He didn't sign the franchise tag, so he really was never an employee. Whatever he did last year, he wasn't even a part of the National Football League, so it's not as relevant. It's worse to show up and then quit on your team when they needed you the most in Week 17 and then cause months of drama than to not show up at all, at least for my money. Want to make sure to, as I do every week and as I do every show, as I do here for Pittsburgh Sports Live, to remind you to hit up the family of networks, PittsburghSportsNow.com, PittsburghHockeyNow.com, even Pittsburgh Soccer Now, and of course our new venture here, relatively new now. It's actually been around a while, and thanks to AB, we've had tons of coverage as we now pivot into the draft. SteelersNow.com, even Jeff Frizzella's Pittsburgh PGHWeatherNow.com. Him and Vukovic doing that, the former KDK boys running PittsburghWeatherNow.com. So we got it all here within the family. PGHSportsLive.com for any of this Pittsburgh Sports Live content to be put up on the website for all eternity, or at least until I feel like taking it down. Make sure to, of course, we also remind you to do this. This is the most important thing. We got a lot of them now, but we'd love more. Click on the subscribe button. Support Pittsburgh Sports Live. Click on the subscribe button. Easy for us to get this content to you. When you do that, you don't have to worry about any of our tweets or any of our promotion. If that annoys you, click subscribe and you'll get it there. And if you don't like one of us, just ignore Say My Show and watch Dan's or whatever. But click subscribe. It helps all of us there on the Pittsburgh Sports Live on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live on Twitter and at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. And if you want, at Mike Asti 11 there on Twitter, at Mike Asti 11 there on Twitter. Bring me the love, bring me the hate. I don't care. Follow me there at Mike Asti 11 on Twitter. Le'Veon Bell bet on himself and lost. Oh well, we now maybe can actually cover some football and talk some football, less of psychology, less of a soap opera and trying to be a therapist as part of Steelers media here, maybe now in the future. This has been another edition of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and now, I don't know, maybe Le'Veon Bell can make up the difference with that side hustle. New album dropping, catch it on SoundCloud, and maybe the next one I'll loan him the title there. It's all about the side hustle, right? Le'Veon, because that's where you got to make up the difference now for the money you lost and the money that you failed to obtain betting on yourself and losing.